Hello.
Evening.
How are you?
Good.
Hello.
How many people do we need for a quorum?
I think it's 6, but we could start without a quorum. We just can't take votes without a quorum.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Okay, I'll start the meeting 7:01. So any public participation?
Does that mean I get to say hi?
You can say whatever you want. This is the time.
Oh, great. Glad to see everyone here, and I'm here too.
Andrea's been joining all of our subcommittee meetings and she's been really getting into ESC stuff, so.
Andrea, can you actually say your full name for the audio recording, please?
Yes, I am Andrea Harkness.
And
Thank
are you a Wakefield resident?
I am a Wakefield resident for the
Excellent.
past 3 years.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, Andrea. I feel like I've seen Andrea. I feel like I've seen you more than any other Wakefield resident lately, other than my own household members. So.
Okay, Sean, we're going to work on getting you out a little bit. Yeah.
Right. Was everybody able to review the minutes from last September's meeting? So was there any updates after Robin sent the recent one?
So I motion for the acceptance of the September meeting minutes, the revised edition sent.
Second.
All right, Tom,
Aye.
Julie,
Yes.
Tiana,
Yes.
Robin,
Aye.
Chris,
Yes.
Sean.
Aye.
And I'm a yes, so minutes approved. Let me share the agenda. So next item is just a recap, the tabling that we've done so far this month. We still have one more event to go. But we were at the farmer's market, October 1st, which was kind of a cold, dreary day. But we did get some people coming by the table and, collection of the plastic snack pouches, which we collected almost 90 pouches, and I sent them back to TerraCycle for recycling. Town Day, I think, went really well. There was, tons of people there, so I think we talked to a lot of people. There was only one person that complained to me about no plastic bags in town. And we played a waste IQ game, which seemed to be pretty fun for people. And just got the word out about what we've been working on. We didn't get a whole lot of ideas coming from people, but we did get 6 people who signed up to volunteer with us, at least on the paper sheet. I'm not sure how many signed up on the QR code, but yeah, there seemed to be a lot of interest to help us out, so that's good. Anybody have any other feedback?
I was curious, I thought the Town Day event was great. I was curious if anybody has seen what the latest Black Earth number is. I think we had 408 or something on the sign. Maybe there was a little uptick.
Yeah, we were really
Yeah,
trying to get people to sign up for that, so it seemed like people were like interested, and hopefully we'll sign up for that soon.
I don't know what the DPW's on. They gave their report last night and it included composting. I think it was still 406, 408, Chris. I don't know how old those were, but more importantly, there's 21 starter kits still available if people are interested. So that might be
Okay.
something to push.
It's 410 right now,
Yeah,
Okay.
so got a couple.
Okay, 21 starter kits, we can mention that at the Wakefield 101.
Julie, does the DPW have the starter kits on hand, or is that something delivered on demand by Black Earth? Or, yeah,
I do
I think
not
they-
know. the-
I think they have them on hand.
okay. I was just wondering if, I don't know, I didn't see it at the DPW table, but, I'm wondering if someone has like an iPad or something that's online at the next table event that, someone is interested, capture them then, kind of be like, here, sign up. Versus.
If you drop a note to Anne, I'm sure she'd be happy to do that at Wakefield 101. The other interesting data point they gave on it is that it's saved us $20,000 by taking waste out of our waste stream.
That's great. For a year? Is that? How long?
I don't know whether that was per year or when it first
Or
started.
started the program, maybe?
Yeah. I'll try to pull up the presentation. I can give some more data on my report.
That's great.
To answer your other question on the signups, the QR code, we only got one sign up and it was Andrea, so.
Okay, well, we have at least 7 people that are interested in volunteering. Hopefully we get some more at the next one. I mean, we could maybe get a QR code for Black Earth and have that at the table instead of having an iPad.
Yeah, that'd work to, allow people to do it right on their own.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I think it's just if you're not logged in, it just goes to put the QR code right to the residential sign up. Yeah.
Julie, can I ask a follow-up question?
Mhm.
I wouldn't imagine there was conversation from DPW about, taking that $20,000 and subsidizing the 410 people who have signed up. Because it is residents paying for it upfront, even though I know they negotiated a discount, but I know the cost of Black Earth is going up, and so I didn't know whether that was.
That's an
part of the
interesting
conversation.
question. I think we can talk about, we can talk about that. I mean, they were super excited by 406 or whatever we presented, as I pointed out, there's about 9,000 households. So we're still only at about a 5 or 6% subscription rate. So yeah, that might be something to consider.
And the quick math is like, $40 per household of savings to the town, which is great, but I don't know. I do worry that cost is a barrier, and I know that there are some communities that, in addition to sort of negotiating the access, have subsidized it for residents.
I mean, it might be interesting if we could put some of it into kind of, if you meet certain income levels, like you can get it without paying or something like that. Let's maybe that could be taken on by the waste committee to think about a structure for that. And I just put up the presentation, 201 tons diverted, saving about $20,000.
And then the other thing, I always thought was very interesting that Joe was saying that not that it's quantifiable, but that they expected significant savings in water also, because of the sort of the food not going down the trash compactor or whatever into the water system. And so I don't know. I wouldn't imagine they can maybe measure that, but I'd be curious if they could.
Yeah. I know that was one reason they were super excited. And I just have to say, they gave a shout out to Rob Darnell. Like, this was his idea.
Yeah.
He was the very first chair of this committee. It was his idea. He's since moved out of town, but it was very nice to hear a shout out to him. But maybe the waste reduction could, just maybe think about it and propose something.
Yeah, it seems like if that's funding that's available, it'd be cool to use it to try to incentivize more people to sign up too, by giving some free trials or something like that, a few months worth or whatever.
Yeah, I would think you hit a critical, or not, as you sign up more folks, those, not only do you get the reduction, but I think, potentially the savings kind of escalates as well.
Right.
The other thing, I had a conversation at Town Day with a couple who's moved into like one of the condo units or, a larger unit, and they were interested for themselves, but they're like, well, maybe we should take it to our condo board. I don't know, and so whether or not, these are, the larger buildings, they don't receive recycling support from the town. So that could be potentially another thing to consider is, could the town support them in composting? If Black Earth could handle that kind of volume.
And I know Maureen Butt, who's the chair of the town council, lives in a multi-unit condo, and she's talking to the DPW about trying to figure that out for her unit. So maybe, maybe there will be kind of a best practices that can come forward. These private companies that
figure out
she's trying to figure out
composting
how. So she was talking about maybe just getting her own little one and taking it to the front, so street side, so that they could pick it up. Or I don't even know whether they come on property to pick it up. I don't know that. But, the other option is to get a bigger bin like we have for the schools or like we have for the AmeriCal, and everybody puts into one big bin that Black Earth then comes and dumps. So is it, 20 small bins or one big bin? And I think those are the kinds of things she's trying to figure out.
I bet you.
I really love this because condos do not get trash services, and this, more and more like trash is being privatized. The mattress pickup is going to actually be a private pickup. So condo users can get access to those.
Julie, I bet you Black Earth, they probably have subscriptions of those, whether it's in our community or other communities, probably under more of their commercial, and how they handle, that from a, entering private property and the, kind of centralized collection. This can't be the first ones asking this question.
Right.
All right, anything else from the tabling? We have Wakefield 101 coming up on the 20th. And I think I'll look to see what the doodle, what we have for people that available for that, and I'll let you guys know. But anything else from the farmer's market or town day?
I was just wondering, I don't know if this comes up later, but in terms of the messaging for the next one, I got the message today from the town about the change in the mattress recycling. And I sort of had it in the back of my head that I knew this was coming, but it feels like a pretty big change. And so I wonder
Yeah.
whether we should be, Tiana graciously added it to the list of things to talk about in the Facebook page, but I wonder whether, you know, not that new residents have a lot of mattresses, maybe they're going to dispose of, but I just feel like we could help get the word out on that a little bit, because I think that's going to be, and then the simple recycling.
Textile ban too. Yep. All right, next item is student member solicitation. So I know this was approved by town council recently, so we need to basically get the word out, it seems like, is the next step. I know that there's some bunch of interest at the high school already from the recycling club people, and so we just need to, I guess, get the word out. I don't know, Myra, you had some.
It's going on the website tomorrow, the town website tomorrow, or by.
It's up.
Okay.
Yep, it's up. I
Yep.
just looked. Yep. It's right on the
Oh.
front page, deadline October 28th.
Great, and
Oh, sweet.
and I know that Sherry was going to send it into the item, which is usually the process. But yeah, I do think, and so Tiana, I can send you the link if that can go into the queue also.
Don't send me the
and
link,
then-
I see it. I got it.
I don't know. I know, Melissa, you said you had some contact with some teachers. I think it's just I don't know how to reach people as well that aren't in the high school, although I think that is a constituency we should reach. I know one of our students who really advocated for this committee was not at the high school, and so, you know, I think there is broader, but I don't know, Julie or others, if you know how to reach.
Yeah.
those
I can
circles.
email the Galvin principal, and then I
I
can
think
follow.
it's age 15, so I think the Galvin might be too young.
Oh, okay.
But the I mean, I can email Principal McLeod if you want.
Yeah,
I would also engage the youth council.
Okay,
They have Instagram, they're tied in, and they've got people in the school system and in the private schools around. And ask them to help us promote it.
okay, great.
And you can just send that to Catherine Dingra at the I think somebody else is running it right now, but she can forward, there's somebody new, but she can forward it over.
Okay,
thanks, Myra, for getting that out.
and then there's also the Warrior cleanup crew is meeting this weekend, and so I know that has drawn in some students, and so I think we're gonna go, so I can talk it up to some of those students too, or sort of help with that distribution through there. Because I know Sophie Brown did a really nice video to our former member Sophie, who was really involved in that for ESC, was involved in Warrior cleanup crew, but she recruited some other members through the National Honor Society who also need community service hours and those kinds of things, and so there may be some representation there. People who are sort of like-minded who are working on this.
Yeah, I think we'll have to decide like how many applications we get, how many people we want to accept, because I know last time there was quite a few. But not all of
Yeah,
them,
it's been a
but-
while since we were recruiting without students helping us out, since we had Sophie and Addie were members for like 3 years.
Yeah.
And if Jennifer McDonald, who's our comms person, if she's sending it to the item, ask her to also send it to the patch. I just feel like that hits social media a little more. And parents might see it.
Okay.
All right, great, thank you.
I would say the one thing that we asked, that we put in there that was a little bit different this time than other times, is we've asked for people to sort of identify what an area of interest might be. Because I think in the last couple of years, it's been a little bit challenging sometimes to engage our students, because it wasn't always clear sort of what they wanted to get out of these experience. And so I hope is that in the letters that they write,
Oh, we lost you.
sorry, my hope is that they put in something that they're sort of interested in working on. But we'll see when we get the responses. And then we've always said, you know, resumes are optional for students. They can send in a resume if they'd like to, if they have one. But if not, it's sort of, we go by that letter that they write.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that the students will join our subcommittees, because I mean, perfect way for them to get involved. All right, next is Judy Green, is our guest tonight to talk about the Conservation Commission and how we can work with them.
Hello. Back again. I feel like the lucky penny. So the Conservation Commission consists of 7 voting members. Right now we have 1 associate non-voting member. They generally have 2. We just had 1 dropout, so we're trying to capture someone else. They also have 2 part-time conservation agents for a total of 24 hours a week. Rebecca is a wetland scientist and Elaine is an environmental attorney. And between them, they have more than 50 years of experience, which is pretty amazing when you look around at other towns to see what the experience is. So the commission works under the state's Wetlands Protection Act. They issue wetlands permits, they review any kind of complaints. It covers building as well as landscaping activities, tree removals. They have no town designated wetland bylaws, which is unusual because virtually every town contiguous to Wakefield has wetland bylaws. And it's been talked about. They've made several attempts at town meeting to enact bylaws, and they've been not really too well received for a variety of reasons. Some of them weren't really, some of them had fines attached to it, which is always controversial and which isn't recommended any longer. But I mean, my hope is they'll try to get on board with that again, maybe get some protection for vernal pools. Right now they have 2 standing policies. One is a 25-foot setback to the wetland and no disturb zone. And the other is a tree removal policy. And they've been pretty successful with upholding these policies. The 25-foot setback especially, because they found that the buffer to the wetland can be even more valuable in some instances than the actual wetland itself, because it provides such a great habitat area. It's a nesting area, a shelter area for smaller animals. It's a migratory corridor, especially around vernal pools. So it's really critical to maintain that area. And a lot of times, especially with the smaller lots, the work gets closer and closer to the wetland. So it makes it much harder to enforce without a bylaw. But for the most part, most of the developers try to, it's a balance. They try to maintain a semblance of a buffer. It may not always be 25 feet, but if they can't maintain the 25 feet, then there are mitigation requirements, added plantings, barriers to prevent people from entering the wetland, things like that. The commission is also charged with managing open space, promoting open space and natural resources. And right now we're updating the open space and recreation plan, which I think is pretty exciting because there seems to be a lot more interest in it now with the shrinking open space. And really, by and large, wetlands are, without a doubt, the most disregarded natural resource there is. I mean, that's historically going back to the 1800s when they drained them and filled them, used them for agricultural purposes. What brought them back to some kind of standing, ironically, were hunters, the duck hunters. As they drained wetlands and filled them, it decreased the duck population. So well-heeled hunters advocated and lobbied and got protections passed to enhance and promote wetlands. So that was kind of an unintended consequence, but I've been with the Conservation Commission for 21 years, and wetlands are always seen as a detriment. They're an annoyance, a nuisance when it comes to building. They've not looked at in terms of the value that they hold for flood storage, for filtering of contaminants, and just for strictly for habitat area alone. And wetlands are among the most productive ecosystems in the world. And I think people don't really see it because they can't use it. It's something you can look at, but you're not going to use it for long. Biological diversity, wetlands have 40% of the planet species on only 7% of the land area. And that's pretty striking when you look at other types of land uses. They're a great carbon sink. And I know you have a new greenhouse gas subcommittee. Wetlands cover 9% of the Earth's surface, but contain almost 35% of global terrestrial carbon. And there was a presentation given a couple of years ago about backyard carbon sequestration and trying to promote perennial plantings, rain gardens, different ways to try to mitigate your own stormwater and, you know, contribute to some form of carbon storage in your own backyard.
Judy, can I just ask you how much wetlands are in Wakefield?
Ooh, that's a good question. Area-wise, I don't know, but it's a large amount. There are a large number of floodplain areas that have been built on, but once they're a floodplain, they're always a floodplain. And as you know, the incremental encroachment onto wetlands is really the biggest detriment to them. You know, every time we inch closer, whether it's an apartment building, whether it's a house, whether it's your lawn, you're taking down trees, you're taking out vegetation. Every time you do that, it alters the wetlands somewhat. So I think, I mean, with the flooding problems in Wakefield, it's something I hope that with the update of the open space plan, it will heighten the awareness of just the function and the values of wetlands and why they're so important and why we need to protect them. I mean, that's what, optimistically, that's what I'm hoping for. I think a heightened awareness will do a big favor to the wetlands. But it's a steep mountain to climb.
Judy, so
Because-
what can we do to help you support the effort?
Well, I think a big part of it is messaging. You know, I'm working on the land use subcommittee. That will be a big help. You know, once we get the tax title properties under the care and custody of Conservation Commission and enhance some of these areas and highlight them and have like, you know, it could be educational areas. But I think just to me, there seems to be a disconnect between its environmental sustainability committee, but where is the sustainable land use discussion? I feel like that's left out. So I think that could maybe be brought into things when there are different projects. The Vote project is a good example. What's happening over there. I know there's been discussion about sustainable building products and the proposed energy park. But what hasn't been discussed is what's going to happen to that area. You know, the energy park, you know, is a sustainable use, but what are you taking away to get that energy park? There's no balance there. You can take away trees and say you'll replant trees, but you're not going to replant mature trees. It will take at least 25 years to get them established to where they are now. So you're losing a tremendous amount of habitat, of function, of water uptake, the blasting. I mean, that site is going to be.
So is
dramatically
the
changed.
Conservation Commission involved in advocating for that, for the
Well,
project?
They are currently in front of the Conservation Commission for a wetland permit. So that the
Okay.
review has just started. But they're constrained by the state regulation. They can certainly advocate, but they're still held to the state regulations under the Wetlands Protection Act.
So the Conservation Commissioners aren't really advocates then?
They are advocates because there's always a way, a negotiation. They always have some discretion when it comes to giving up something to get something. Mitigating more plantings, better plantings, barriers to prevent people from encroaching into wetlands, things like that. And they'll certainly advocate in terms of trying to push to achieve the best product, or asking why something is in one area, haven't you looked at this area, trying to come up with different options. But I feel like they're kind of an island unto themselves because there isn't really much support at all for the Conservation Commission, for the efforts, for the permitting. And they do a lot of consequential permitting. And it's always after the fact. It's like, why did you let this happen? Look at all the trees are gone. But if people don't show up, then there's really, they can do so much. But if there's public participation in it, public outcry, it's a totally different story.
So does the commission work with other groups like Friends of the Lake or other groups like that?
On certain projects, not really that much. I mean, they did before when they were talking about cleaning up the lake, the solar bees, and they did when they had the lake committee, they did a lot of work, and they've worked with Bill Renault on different projects around the lake, but not here and there. Friends of the Lake will come in. But even on the 200 Corner Power Parkway, they didn't work with the Conservation Commission on their efforts that they were putting forward. I don't know why, but that's what I mean. There's a disconnect between.
Yeah.
How closely do you work with ZBA in planning? I mean, you're all kind of, well, at least ZBA, you're all adjudicatory, right? I mean, you're looking at giving out permits, but
Right.
how does that work?
With planning, if it's an overlapping project, they will communicate back and forth. They're much better about it now. And they just started having collaborative meetings, but not really with ZBA.
Okay.
And I think that's another area of disconnect is I think there should be a better appreciation for if it's an area that the ZBA, for instance, is looking at to permit and there's a wetland involved. I think there should be an ongoing discussion during their permitting process. If the applicant says we want to move the building another 10 feet into the wetland because we need another 10 units, whatever it is. That shouldn't be an automatic, okay, just bump it over into the wetland. It should be, well, wait a minute, let's see what conservation says about it, but that doesn't happen.
So
It's
do
okay,
they
it's only- it's
can
only
they
10 feet.
override you then? They can override you?
It doesn't override the commission, but they can issue their conclusion that runs contrary to conservation's conclusion.
And ZBA zoning board of appeals.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think it's been, to me, as an observer, it seems too easy to say, well, it's only 10 feet into the wetland. But that can be a very consequential, and that shouldn't always be the standard. Well, just inch in further, just inch in further. How about you shrink it back further? That's not in the conversation as much. And I feel like I don't know, a lot of it is cost driven. I understand that, but and maybe I'm just not realistic, but I don't think any of the permitting boards owe someone a certain level of profit. If you want to make something a certain size, then you need to figure it out within the constraints of each permitting. Not go to one, get your permit and say, well, you know, then we'd have to go back to them to get a revision. Well, you've created your own problem.
Judy, if there was a bylaw, would ZBA have to be more aware of that?
No, it would be a wetland bylaw. It would be under the Conservation Commission. It wouldn't be, it wouldn't make sense to be a zoning bylaw because it would be the same as the stream setback bylaw. If you are proximate to a intermittent brook or a perennial stream, you have to go to both the ZBA and the Conservation Commission. But the Conservation Commission is the one who has the science-backed data to make conclusions on it, not the ZBA. So it doesn't make sense to have it with the ZBA.
No, I guess I didn't mean to think that it was a zoning bylaw, but if there was more weight behind Concom's standing practices, then they wouldn't be able to indicate that there was a potential for some rules to be changed. I guess that's what, that they would have to be more aware of what the policies, so they can't make negotiations that put them in conflict.
Right, I mean, it would still be, you'd still be able to defer from whatever, if, say, they had a 30-foot setback to a wetland. An applicant could still go to them as part of the permitting process. It would be similar to obtaining a variance. They would say, we think we meet the performance standards that are laid out in the state guidelines based on this, this, and this. And since that's the case, we can achieve the standards by only having a 20-foot setback. They would have to prove that they can meet all the performance standards under the state guidelines in a lesser setback. And that, I mean, in some cases that can be done.
Do you know if there's any state efforts to strengthen the protections? So it's not just Wakefield's, you know, being the bad guys?
There's always talk about it, but it's one of those areas that they have a large development lobby that oftentimes squashes things. Because, as I said, it's an undervalued, you know, disregarded resource. And I think it's not just in Wakefield, it's everywhere. And that needs to change. But I think having more consistent messaging amongst the boards, I think would be helpful. But it's just getting there is, I don't know how to get there.
Yeah, so Sean is part of the Open Space Committee. So representative from ESC on that. So he'll be working on the open space plan. And I don't know if there's, I know that you guys are going to all the events too as the Conservation Commission doing your advocacy. So if we can, I don't know, help out in any way or any other way besides, you know, being a part of the Open Space Committee and getting the word out, if there's anything else.
Well, I think just part of it is what I said about sustainable land use, bringing that into the discussion when you talk about different things in ESC. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, so we have a land use subcommittee now. So.
But even like the greenhouse gas survey, other towns have done that in conjunction with like tree counts to try to make a bridge between why we need natural resources and how they interact with greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
Judy, has there been, I mean, I know, having been on that in the land use subcommittee meetings with you, and I think, we've been talking a lot about, and I don't want to steal Sean's thunder when he gets down to our subcommittee. But talking about sort of improving like the trail mapping and the sort of public lands that we have that people are welcome to use. I think the challenge with some of these wetlands is that really you don't want people to use them. So I'm struggling a little bit with like, can we map them, or like, is there a way to even increase awareness of town of where these sort of protected resources are? Or sort of what is it, I'm just struggling a little bit with sort of like, how do we increase the value? Because the first question is the first question that we had, which is, oh, where are our wetlands? And I know where some of them are out, like, for example, in Reedy Meadow. I think that there are some sort of behind some of the developments on North Ave. I think that there are, there's some
Any brook, stream, river.
Yeah,
So
I know there's a stream and a sort of wetland right next to the Woodville, which and that's been an area where there's been some pollution. I think has been a little bit problematic.
Yeah, the Saugus River.
Updated.
Yeah, the Saugus River is a big problem. Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm a little bit struggling with sort of how do we draw attention to these incredible resources that we have in town, but then not draw attention to, because we don't, I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, other than the collaboration with planning and their thoughts about, the plan around the lake and potential bylaw changes in that region. I don't know if you have ideas about how we could be helpful or how we could push this forward without that crossing the line and have, because we, like you said, you don't necessarily want people in these spaces. You want them to know that they're there, but not to go there necessarily.
Well, I think there's plenty.
I was just going to say signage is like, the first thing.
Right. So maybe they need to be labeled or some, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just not.
Yeah, no, I think there are areas that can be like along the Saugus River. There could be areas that could be kind of an observatory area or maybe small pathway areas. I think the mapping, I'm hoping that will be part of the open space plan. We'll get some type of online mapping. And I know Rebecca is working with the GIS person at the town hall to try to come up with some things.
There's a map. I spoke with someone in the engineering department at the DPW recently because I was looking at something about my property, and they pointed me to this set of maps on mapgeo.io. You can get to it from the map library page in the engineering division of the Wakefield town website, but there's this great interactive map, and there is a wetlands layer, so you can actually like zoom in and explore and like see all the different stuff. So I don't know if like people are even aware of it, but it's a pretty cool interactive map.
I mean, the other thing is, our school system in Wakefield has done a lot in recent years to invest in the science education. And the elementary schools, for example, have science instructors now. And so I'm wondering also if it would make sense. I know the fifth graders recently walked down to Lake Quannapowitt and tested the water. But also whether it makes sense if we want to sort of include wetlands education, because they are everywhere. It's like
Yeah.
That could be another opportunity.
Yeah, there was a program that Elaine headed up. She did an educational series at the elementary schools, and they discontinued it.
Well, it might be worth sort of there's been a lot of stress, but now I feel like they have these resources, and they've had a curriculum educator for 3rd and 4th grade at the elementary level for a couple of years, and now they have one for 1st and 2nd grade also. And so they're getting sort of a higher level of science education in the classroom.
Yeah.
And it may be an opportunity to a sort of liaison role. And I know, it's STEM week next week. So, but, I think that they are sort of taking that really investing in that science education at lower levels.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be a good idea.
The more we can get our kids involved, the better.
Right, right.
Yeah, and I think our community, like you said, if we could like integrate it with our community education, our greenhouse gas, a couple of these others, that would be helpful too. And I think just watching meetings, like I've always been a big advocate that like, the more of us we can get on conservation commissions or ZBA, and say, wait, what's going on? Probably the better.
Yeah, I mean, I even think, the library has, I think, gotten much more active too in bringing people in to talk about issues that are important in town. I feel like it's like we're in a post-COVID kind of like time where people are just like, we have time to make up and renewed energy to bring people together. So it seems like there could be some education opportunities.
I agree.
So is there,
I
is there,
love the, yeah, go ahead.
so go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I love the backyard, kind of was that a program that was in town, like your backyard is a carbon sink, kind of?
It was a webinar that I attended.
That's
There's a
fascinating.
group out of Somerville Ecological Landscape Alliance. They have excellent information on this site. They have excellent webinars. There's also some information on the conservation page about
Okay.
backyard type of rain garden, gardening, things like that, perennial,
Okay.
pollinated gardens. And we're reworking our website to make it more visually pleasing and a little bit more user-friendly. Directing people to the webpage is always a challenge. I mean, generally people don't run into the Conservation Commission until they find out that they have a wetland in their backyard.
So is there anything else that the Conservation Commission works on besides wetland protection?
Open space. That's
Okay.
also within their charge. So that's why,
Are shade trees within your charge?
no. No. I know, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Although I did give some comments to the planning board when they were redoing their rules and regs about, different towns have different approaches that seem a lot more vibrant than what Wakefield has when it comes to shade trees and different approaches they take to curtail. People always are hesitant because the buckling of the sidewalks and things like that. So they have so much more technology now. The trees that are more adaptable to it. They have some type of surround that can go around it that prevents the buckling. So I think that, it makes such a difference having a well-shaded street.
Mhm.
And I think we've gotten away from that. And I know the town, tries to keep up with the replanting, and that's always a challenge. But, you go through different towns, you go down 28 in Stoneham, that strip in the middle, it looks beautiful. It's a rain garden. It looks nice. It just it adds so much to that. Malden has the same thing. The Fellsway in Saugus, they have a new initiative. People could have plantings in their front yard or along the grass strip, which I think was great. The downside is you don't have any control. The person can cut it down the next week. But if the person is willing to do it, then chances are they'll keep it. And they do the same thing in Cambridge. So I think that
I know a
Cambridge
lot of
is a lot more
people in
innovative.
Wakefield, use the strip by the sidewalk that's to do stuff, plants and flowers and other things.
Yep.
Is that allowed or?
I don't think it's discouraged. I think it should be encouraged as long as it's done, responsibly. But it can be a great area for a little type of rain garden, some perennials. It adds so much. It can be a little pollinator area. And it's little things like that that I think heighten people's awareness of the natural landscape, and then may, pique their interest in broadening that awareness. That's what I'm hoping for. So I think if you start smaller, start in people's backyards, show them the beauty of not having to have a full sweeping lawn. You can have a planted area and a lawn area, things like that. Just trying to rethink the way we do things. Because the way that we're doing things is not working. Flooding's a big problem in Wakefield. Lack of any type of tree cover, any kind of vegetative cover. I mean, that's the first thing I see when people move in. It seems they take down every tree. And I've had people that have come to conservation and have said flat out that they do not want leaves. That's a big problem, the leaves.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. Because you're just inviting more pests and more everything else when you don't have any kind of vegetative cover. They're having the reverse effect from what they think they are. And that's especially true with wetlands. If you have a healthy wetland, you're going to have far fewer mosquitoes. You'll have more birds that are going to eat the mosquitoes. So it's just getting out those. And that's why I'm hoping the open space plan will highlight the values of wetlands. And maybe there will be some appreciation from not only the residents, but from the permitting boards as well. Because I think that's, I just think that's a problem. The boards need to, there just needs to be more cohesion, I think. They all should be working towards a similar goal.
Yeah. Is there gonna be work on like trail mapping in Wakefield, or is that part of the open space plan, or is that
Yes.
something else?
Yep,
Okay.
we are going to work on that. Some work has been done on it already, but it's just enhancing it and getting it in a better format. And then that could be, a trail map on the conservation website, and hopefully an electronic mapping, and which would be great. I mean, like Burlington has a great conservation page. They have they have a lot of conservation areas, and you click on the name of it and it'll show you it on the map, and it gives you a photograph of the area and what trails they have and what you might see out there. So I think that's something I'd like to see happen, because we don't have a ton of trails. We don't have a lot of that many conservation areas. So it wouldn't be, I don't think, a giant project. And it would be valuable because people, it's areas that you don't know about. And it's a close proximity, so it's nice. And Julie can bike to most of them.
Julie can bike anywhere.
That's true.
Anybody can bike anywhere, not just Julie.
Exactly, that's my point. I'm trying to model it.
Judy, for the community education subcommittee, we're putting some more information on our website, pointing to like good resources and tips and things folks can do. I've just added a link for the Conservation Commission site and the wetlands map. But if there are other, I mean, I don't think there's any problem with us pointing to other local towns' sites if they have real good, here's good native plants or other
Right.
things like that. If there's
Right.
any stuff like that that you have handy and want to just toss over to me, I'd be happy to
That'd
just
be great.
kind of put a pile of links and resources for folks to find inspiration.
I did send the leaves. That's my
Yes,
my
yep,
favorite.
that's on
song.
there
My
already.
favorite little story.
That's a good one.
No,
Yep,
that'd be great. I appreciate that.
awesome.
That'd be a help.
All right. Well, thanks for speaking to us, and hopefully this won't be the end of our working together,
I
and
don't think
just thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to updates from subcommittees. So the waste reduction subcommittee met a few weeks ago. And one big thing that we rolled out was a survey to Wakefield businesses to get an idea of their compliance with the plastics and polystyrene bylaws, and also their interest in doing any, sustainability initiatives like energy efficiency or renewable energy, or really anything, any of the topics that we work on, just to kind of gauge what their capability or interest is. And how many respondents do we get to? Yeah,
I'm looking at it right now. We got 9 responses total. They professed to 100% compliance on the plastics bylaw, plastics reduction bylaw, and this polystyrene bylaw, but there are only 2 relevant business, like of the 9 businesses, only 2 were restaurants or retail.
yeah.
The most of them recycle as much as possible. None of them compost their food scraps, though about half say that they don't have any. Which is hard to believe because everyone eats lunch, but maybe they don't waste any lunch. And then Tom, to your credit, the questions that you suggested about, did you know about these couple of different municipal gas and light department programs? Many of the responses were of the category, I did not know about it, but I will now look into it. So raised some awareness on those. The wrap-up question of how important do you think sustainability topics are to your customers? Most said, well, there was one response of very, most were between somewhat and a little. And the majority said they would consider participating in a green business. No one said sign us up. So tepid response, I would say, at a 9.
Yeah, so we work with the Chamber of Commerce and they sent the survey out to all the chamber members. So that doesn't include a lot of the restaurants in town, unfortunately. So we have to figure out a way to send out the survey to all the people that are, or all the businesses that are not chamber members. So that's kind of the next step.
Would you host it on one of the Wakefield community groups? I mean, there are, once a week, a group that's organized by Brian Fox allows businesses to promote their businesses. And there's a lot of them that, are Wakefield businesses that promote. I know we run the risk of inviting everyone access to the survey. You may get folks that should not be answering, but I don't know if you want to go that loud.
Maybe Robin, with that, just at the very top of the survey, have a free form fill, either categorically, have them state what their business is, or just what category your business is in, if you want to keep it a little bit more anonymous.
That's that's in there. We have them say what category their business is in part because we use that to filter which questions they see. We don't care for law offices to answer about whether they do straws and
well, the name of the business too.
I was just wondering, as a deterrent for those filling it out that aren't necessarily a business.
I mean, we don't really want to invite everyone and their mother to fill it out, and then we'll get a bunch of bad data. So
is there, Julie, do you know, I don't know, and is there some sort of town registry of businesses that has email addresses that could be contacted? I'm thinking of they have yellow pages, which don't exist anymore, dating myself, that we could target email addresses that way.
I think Melissa, didn't we get a list like that when we started this process? I guess it just, the question becomes, I guess the town could send it out. I think Erin Kukinda certainly has email addresses for
Yeah,
almost all
I
of
was
us.
gonna ask her kind of after we went to
Yeah.
chamber. Um,
That's what I would do.
she was busy with town day, so I wanted to wait till that settled down. But yes, and I also wanted to see like how many people we would get from the chamber sending it out, but yeah, we'll definitely reach out to her, because, you know, I think before we were just looking at restaurants, but we really want like all the businesses to fill it out, even if they're not a restaurant. So.
If we have relationships with businesses, how would we tell them, hey, have you filled out our survey? Can you please do so? Like, how would they get it?
I can send out the link to this group so that you have it and could share it with a business over email or text or something.
I mean, because, you know, I'm a client of some businesses in town, so let me guilt them into doing it, or try to at least.
Would it be too much to put it on our website and drive people there to do it, or you think that that would just get out of control? I find it's impossible to get people to do surveys, so
Yeah,
I'm not so worried about it getting out of control, but
right.
you know. Or just share it with us, that's good.
Yeah, we'll share with all of you, and I'll reach out to Erin and see if she has a list of all the Wakefield businesses that are not chamber members. Or even if they are, we can still send it out again, because we don't get very many responses. But so yeah, we're just trying to gauge like what, you know, what type of initiatives we can work on with the businesses, what their interests are, whether they're interested in becoming, you know, a green business, and we can, you know, kind of go that route, promoting that kind of a program. And also learn about if, you know, if they're not compliant with the bylaw, what are the issues related to that? So yeah, that was the biggest thing that we have been working on. I'm also going to be hopefully putting forward a grant application to the WEF Foundation to fund the composting programs at the elementary schools. Because I found out that we don't have any more Black Earth credit for that, so need to find another solution for funding. And the last time we did this, it was through the WEF Foundation grant, so I'm hoping that we can do that again, but we need a sponsor who's in the school department. So I'm going to be speaking to superintendent tomorrow, and hopefully get his support for the grant, and hopefully get that back up and running. I mean, there's also the, you know, long-term funding that needs to be figured out, but hopefully we can get there at some point. That's all. Tiana, I don't know if you have anything else to add for our committee. No. Land protection.
Hi, yeah, we had a good meeting last week. A few of the things already came up in discussion of Judy's presentation and discussion with us. It is Myra and Julie and Judy on the land use subcommittee with me, so please chime in with anything that you want to add in. We did discuss some trails maintenance and the idea of using some of the volunteers, and hopefully we're collecting signatures of interested people at these various events, and seeing if some of those folks might be interested in participating in trail maintenance. Also trying to think about how we'd reach out to regular users of some of the trails and enlist people with trail maintenance things there. There's not really a program in place anywhere in Wakefield for using volunteers in those ways. So that's something we thought that we could try to facilitate over the coming months and get that established. and also connecting with the cleanup crew at the school that was mentioned earlier, and try to help support cleanup activities like that. I have a follow-up to do this month to connect with some folks in some neighboring towns that do have more formal coordination or just kind of longer standing traditions of engaging volunteers and how the volunteers work with the town officials in that way. Some of the things we discussed around public outreach were already alluded to as well. This idea of, can we have open signage for both protected lands as well as recreationally available lands, and this idea of not wanting to encourage overuse of sensitive lands, but to encourage use of lands that are accessible where it'd be appropriate. And so we were going to follow up some more, both with the outreach committee as well as with the town about how we can do that. We also discussed this idea of just trying to set up QR codes at trailheads. The fact that actually we're behind with some of this, like, where we don't have maps at trailheads in Wakefield so much compared to other towns, that's actually an opportunity now to maybe really leapfrog past 1980s technology. Because I think, I don't know about the rest of you, when I'm at a trailhead, I take my phone out and take a picture of the map. I don't want the paper map. There's usually not paper maps there, even if there was a box for it. So we can just, by being behind, we can be ahead now and just have this set up so that people can scan a nice high resolution PDF QR code right to their phones as a PDF instead of zooming in on photos that they took at a trailhead behind a fogged over a glass covered map. So and hopefully that those things would not be high budget things to do, right? Related to that, and also this discussion, the question came up earlier about trail mapping. I'm really interested in this idea of just trying to encourage responsibly, but encourage mapping of trail maps on the All Trails app. I think that's one way that people often find things. I don't see so much in Wakefield when I look on All Trails. I see things in other towns. A lot of those things just get mapped by volunteers and trying to help connect that. That's a way of getting information out there. It doesn't have to be de novo mapping necessarily, and we'll just look into what can connect it with that. But I think that's, and if other people have favorite apps like All Trails, but that's one that I know that a lot of people use. We also had an extensive and really interesting conversation about trees because, and Judy, I don't know if you're available, you can weigh in on some of this, but the, we're talking about where we might connect with some technical assistance, groups like the Mass Tree Warden and Foresters Association, which is connected to the UMass Forestry School. But Judy had mentioned the city of Cambridge had undertaken a canopy mapping study, and we had talked about, and I believe it's already something that's coming out of Conservation Commission now as well, but this idea of seeing if there's an ARPA funds ask we can put in around the tree mapping. I don't know if Julie or Judy had updates on that, because Julie said that, I think that was also your follow-up.
Yeah, it was mentioned at the DPW conversation last night at town council that they are working on a tree inventory. So I don't know whether that's exactly what we were talking about, but there seems to be a lot going on around this issue.
So there was this idea that that Cambridge had worked with UVM, with University of Vermont, and that that they had done a mapping thing, and whether that would be an appropriate ask of ARPA
Right,
funds
and I don't know
actually.
who they've engaged to do this. I've actually asked for our tree warden to come to a future town council meeting, either at the end of this month or to really kind of have a comprehensive discussion around trees. And so we should be able to get some more answers then.
So the
Boston also did it on an even bigger scale than Cambridge within the last couple of years, just as a resource for folks.
And Julie and Tom can tell you this is a personal issue to me right now, since the town just cut down multiple trees on my street. But I also, it's also clear that there is some kind of a plan for trees at DPW. And I just hasn't been communicated what the plan is. And so Julie, I think as you're sort of asking questions, that it would be helpful to know what is the plan and what are the thoughts around the sort of tree cover that we do have, since there are some areas that have very limited tree cover.
Right. And I am definitely, I want to see the plan and all that. I'm personally quite concerned about the process right now. about kind of, coming home and having big trees cut down. This happened to me like a year ago and I'm still waiting for new trees. So I'm trying to understand the process. And then we'll definitely get to kind of what the plan is, and having these baseline studies, as Sean said, is going to be critical. So hopefully we can engage, make sure we get that happening.
So
Well,
just-
what's the, like, if you're asking about trees, what's the thing with the, like, buying a tree? I bought a tree. I did a community.
You did a community tree, yeah. So there's a fund
year
in town
ago.
where you can buy a tree and they'll come in and they'll plant it for you, which is great.
How would I know if they have? Because I haven't,
You haven't seen it?
no.
No, so we'll add this to our list, yeah.
I've also gotten some questions from community members around what's the accountability in making sure that the trees that they plant are maintained and healthy. I mean, I think there's some real concern about some of the trees planted at the middle school and whether they were planted in a way that gives them a shot at surviving. I
think this is what Judy was saying. I think she dropped off, but I guess there's some new technology around all of that as well. Listen, shoot all these questions to either, to Sean or to me. Like, I think this is something that our subcommittee will be taking on in earnest.
And if I can just round out in terms of this tree mapping thing and kind of what that helps do, if it's not obvious, it can help identify where there's a need for more planting, for more cover, whether that be for cooling purposes, for all sorts of purposes. And also you can help identify where the good areas are for planting. So then how do you use that information? That can be to prioritize, from a canopy perspective, you could prioritize town-owned areas where things are lacking and look to have town planting there. But for other areas where it's private land, that might be where we want to target some educational opportunities, saying, some people might be interested if you engage them in the right way. And then the thing that I was thinking about in that discussion, which I never thought about before, but I was looking at like the negotiations happening around the planned redevelopment of the gas station at Four Corners, just down the street from me. And if we have information like this, that says this is there's a need here for canopy enhancement, then in the same way that the town negotiates with folks when they want a slightly larger sign, saying, sure, you can have a larger sign if you put garbage cans in over here and agree to empty them or whatever else, the types of things that the town negotiates on, that this could be part of it. That part of that trade-off could be, yes, but would you also be willing to plant trees along this part of the property? Those are the types of things that if you look in the item, you see these discussions that come up, the negotiations around variance requests. So I thought that was really interesting, that information is very powerful. It's not just about having a map that can live in a drawer somewhere. We did discuss some of the coordination with Conservation Commission. It was great that Judy was here to be able to explain more of Conservation Commission's activities to all of us. I will be serving on that open space committee planning process. I got the appointment paperwork. I haven't heard about the schedule for that yet. And other than that, I mean, really, we had a few big to-do items around the mapping, the volunteers, and trying to connect and find some opportunities for education around that. So we wanted to make sure we're doing those things well and not take on 50 things that we might not get done. So I think that's all I really have for my report on that, but I don't know if there were other discussions or questions on that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm assuming like the DPW doesn't have any type of tree planting plan. They just kind of go ad hoc. Is there any-
I think there's a plan. I just don't know what it is and I don't know where it lives.
Yeah.
So who do we, if we have comments on street teas and stuff like that, so is it Myra, Sean, and Julie, or?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to be sending you, so Lexington Center just did a massive center renovation or whatever, I don't know what's it called, street, streetscaping or whatever. And they cut down some mature trees and they said, we're replacing them because of X, Y, and Z and roots. But they have a great graphic example of a technology that can help a street tree. It is expensive, so it's not necessarily applicable in all locations, but in some areas with, super sensitivity about routes, you know, with a lot of pedestrian traffic, we should be looking to invest in these things. So I'll share it with you guys.
That would be great.
I really want more trees on North Ave.
Yeah, I
One
think,
of my wishes.
and kind of what actually spurred this before I got the call from Myra and Stephen about what happened on their street yesterday was the Massachusetts Municipal Association. I'm on their environmental committee, and Senator Cream is going to introduce a legislation again to really improve the tree laws in the state. I guess the last time that the shade tree law was looked at was like 1935. And so there's a very small fine, for example, if shade trees are taken out. And what I was surprised to learn is that there's supposed to be public notices and public hearings for shade tree removal and public ways. And this is where I'm getting to process. I'm not quite sure how that's happening in Massachusetts. I mean, sorry, in Wakefield. So those are kind of the process things I want to understand as well. Yeah, but I think we all agree. And I think, honestly, I think all the counselors agree that we need more trees.
Julie, I've attended a tree removal hearing as in my professional life. So if you have any questions, you can let me know.
Okay, that's really good to know. Thanks, Robin.
So the key was I had to learn who the tree warden was, and it was really funny for the community to figure out who actually held that title at that moment.
Well, we certainly have a tree warden, and he's appointed. He's not elected. And you know, I don't have any comment on kind of, you know, I don't know.
No, but it was just when I needed to do it, it was a little bit like, who has that title and stuff. But you know, I can tell you what was asked of me and how I went through it. So.
And I just noticed when I'm in other towns, even in Melrose, when I run in Melrose, when a tree is scheduled to be taken down, there's a sign on the tree that says, this tree is being taken down in the next week. Or I was in Cambridge this week, and you can see there's an area where a tree was taken down, and there's a little sticker on the sidewalk that says this tree is being replanted. So I and maybe that's just some best practices that we can learn to adopt. Again, process is where I am right now. So.
Yeah, Julie, I agree. Process and communication is lacking, right?
Yes.
Clear, you know, something obviously that I was just exposed to yesterday. You know, and looking at that, you know, I agree. Just the small amount of communication can go a long way, right? That's
well,
yeah.
and Tom, I think you're going to be part of this, because I actually think the loophole for not having a hearing is utility. So yeah. I think as long as you're cutting trees down and you're blaming the utility, not blaming, but you can invoke the utility, then I think you can get around a lot of process. This is what I'm learning. So I think you will have to stay in close contact on that.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Next is Building Efficiency Committee.
So late September, there was another community meeting. Billed as a sustainable and design meeting, but really it was design update. The sustainability news wasn't anything noteworthy. In fact, I posted a question that they couldn't even answer. So the slide talked about how they want to address embodied carbon. So I asked how they plan to do that, and they couldn't. They have since gotten back to me, but it was kind of, I thought, embarrassing to headline sustainability. So the more important meeting is next week, I think it is, and it's another public meeting, and it's going to have people understand the cost. So they're continuing to
the high school.
Yeah, at the high school.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should have said it. Yeah, it's all at the high school. The Voc, I'm not sure how they did it, but they had their very public groundbreaking ceremony in the last couple of weeks. And to know that they only just started conversations with the Conservation Commission is concerning. And I'm also getting headlines that construction has started. So I'm not sure what level of construction they can start without getting in the way of the pressure is definitely on them moving and permitting falling in line. So keep your eyes out. I missed it when they went to Conservation Commission. I had it on the calendar and I totally missed it, but keep your eyes out.
I feel like that just like a PR opportunity.
The vocational school being regional has just a whole different kind of way it works and how they've done things. Is that fair to say? Anyone who's but does anyone have any questions about the projects? Because I don't have much to report other than they're saying still all the right things. There's not a lot of detail in the drawings because it's not appropriate at this time. So as numbers are presented, I encourage people to think long-term. It will be a scary number, but remember it's divided amongst many years, many people. And if you cut some things out now, you won't get them back later and it could cost you more long-term.
I was really impressed at Town Day that the drawings that Left Field presented and talked about had a lot of the sustainability features. There was like a whole sustainability highlight, which I thought was sort of a testimony to your work, Robin, and others who have joined in to talk about sort of why that's really important to the town.
All right. So Dan is not here for the volunteer coordination, but I think we're gonna wait until Wakefield 101 to kind of get the full list of people who signed up for volunteers to kind of take the next step in contacting them and getting, more information from them. So that'll happen after that. Greenhouse gas inventory, Chris.
Yep, so we had, Melissa and I had a meeting and Andrea joined us. So I guess the main outcome was we were sort of deciding a little bit on methodology for sort of how to begin this project of gathering the data to form a greenhouse gas inventory for the town. We did settle on the MAPC tool, which was developed by MAPC and a few of the towns in the area, including Melrose, Arlington, and Natick. And then we kind of walked through it, and I think it was a good start. We sort of looked at each section of what's required for inputs and divvied things up a little bit for some next steps. A little bit of further research needed and digging, and there's definitely some chunks of data we'll need from various sources, including from the gas and light department. So and also Melissa pointed out to me that you'd like to be involved with those meetings. So apologies for not looping you in on the first one. We're planning to have another meeting on the 26th. So hopefully you can join us. We can also probably change that if needed. So anything else you would add, Melissa, at this point?
I don't think so. I think the MAPC model was pretty straightforward, and seems like it'll be somewhat easy to complete the data input, because mostly because we have a lot of the data already from having our own utility. I need to look into Mass Energy Insights. Jen Kelly was going to give me access to it, but I need to follow up and see what's in there for data. And I think I don't think it'll take us much time to complete the model and the inventory, and then we just need to decide kind of next steps on what we're going to do with it, how we're going to, maybe distribute it to other departments in town, or, if anybody has ideas, definitely welcome.
Yeah, I could see us, putting some of that information up on the webpage, and I'm not sure what guidance or best practices there are for sort of benchmarking, because I think we'll sort of arrive at this one number and it's going to be like, okay, what does that mean? So how do we sort of benchmark and compare to maybe other towns, and just for people to start to get a frame of reference. And then I guess also importantly is just sort of tracking that over time and seeing hopefully progress. So yeah, I think as you said, the tool definitely it made it feel pretty manageable. I think there will be certain sections of it that they sort of suggest a methodology that has a lot of assumptions, baked into it. And what we might find is that as we get into it further, we'll think about maybe more town-specific ways that we can estimate certain things. But at least to sort of walk through its the outline of the tool and its methodology, I think it's manageable. And yeah, we're well on our way to getting a baseline.
Yeah, and just to note that, Julie, we decided 2021 would be our baseline year because of green communities is a year for green communities. So wanted to, have those line up.
Yep, that's great. I'm super excited about this. It'd be awesome if there'd be like a dashboard or something on the website.
Yeah.
I
So
think
yeah,
that'd be really interesting to discuss and see, I imagine it'll shine a light on certain areas that are more, more ripe for opportunities than others, right? Like, can we compare, like, okay, if we put more effort in reducing this area, it is far more impactful than elsewhere. I feel like we got a bit of that on the green communities thing. Like, these particular buildings are the big culprits, but like now looking at it townwide, if there's more we see, it'd be great to like once the baseline is done, have a session where we like really dig into it and pick it apart and ask a bunch of questions.
definitely. Right, green communities.
Well, I was all ready to report that, we're in and we're just waiting, but I just saw a note come in from Jen Calais that the state just got back to us with another maybe 10 questions. I think they're pretty easy to answer. There's some things about our assumptions in the Energy Insights program and around our fleet management. It looks like some things may have been misidentified as exempt when they're not exempt. So she's going to work. MAPC actually was our consultant on green communities, so she's going to work with MAPC and with town staff to get those. But we are thick in the review process for green communities, and hopefully we will hear more soon once we get these questions answered. That's really all I
Do you
have.
not like start anything until we have the questions answered, or how's that work?
Well, no, I mean, we can start and we should move forward, definitely. But we basically, until you're designated, you don't get this, you get a $70,000 grant to kind of kick things off. But most certainly, I mean, and we've talked a lot, what's going to really happen with green communities is that it's going to have to be kind of socialized into the capital planning process for the town, because that's where the decisions around the equipment for energy efficiency is going to be made. And so that process is just kicking off. We always kick off the budget and capital budget plan at the end of October with a tri-board meeting between the school committee, so Eileen will be there, and the finance committee. So yeah, like that's why hopefully we'll find out from the state. But even if we don't have the word from the state, like, we're going to be pushing really hard that some of these expenditures get included in the capital budget, which will be voted on at town meeting in May. So that's all I have.
So, I mean, if there's anything we can kind of get started with,
yeah, I've been bad about it. Well, I have to see who else is on this committee with me, but maybe we can sit down and really go through the application and see whether there's any low-hanging fruit that we can get started with. I think probably even more important, and Melissa, you and I have talked about this, is how we're going to you know, how, who's executing on it, right? And who's kind of following it. I think that's probably, again, process, right? That's probably a more critical issue at this point.
Yeah.
You know, and then I think we'll be taking some of us to like advocate to the capital planning committee and some of these other. I will certainly bring it up at the tri-board meeting that we expect that these expenditures will be in our budget going forward as we start the process.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. The education.
Yeah, so as you saw in my email, we're looking to do a big splash of new info on our website. I'm going to be sending that over to Jennifer to get updated tonight or tomorrow morning. Thank you for folks who have sent in additions and notes and comments. And we will certainly update it over time as we learn more, but want to just have a good collection of tips and links and, you know, how to recycle this particular thing, you know, available for folks so that they don't have to go wandering around 17 different sites. They can just come to ours and find what they're looking for. So hoping to have that updated in advance of the Wakefield New Residents 101 next week. And then we've just been doing a bunch of social media posts, Facebook posts about various topics. We've been sharing some of them out to the Wakefield community group. And thanks for folks for sharing and liking them. The more of that we do, the more eyeballs end up getting served our content. So, you know, keep doing that, please. And I appreciate folks sending me stuff also. Various of you have, you know, stumbled across articles or things and said, hey, this should go on our Facebook. So appreciate that. I've been adding them to a queue. One question I had, and I don't know who can help me answer this, is whether, since the stuff we're posting isn't anything that we're ever going to vote on, it's not, you know, deliberation, can we make that document a shared document so that anyone can add something to the queue of stuff we post? Like, where does that sit with the open meeting? Like, if it is somewhere where anyone could access it and only we can edit it, is that acceptable? Because that sure would make it easier. But I don't know where that line is.
Tatiana, there is a state website on open meeting with a helpful phone number.
Okay.
So that's a great question. You may have a Q&A. It's been a while since I've been on it.
Cool.
But I do know that while you may not think it's like, we actually have to be careful. We can't all comment on the same post if it's related to something to the committee, because that is considered a deliberation. And that's something, you know, open meeting law never would have anticipated, you know, when these things are written. So who's to know, say, if things don't evolve technology wise. So I would, I'll send you the info that I know from the state website on how to ask those questions. And you may just poke around and see if there's a Q&A on social media or that. Are you hoping people view it or view it and edit it?
I would like the 10 of us to edit it, just to, you know, if you see an article about something, that you can just put it on there rather than emailing it to me. And so that you all can see it and say, oh, look, Tiana already has the mattress recycling on that list. I won't, you know, no need to add it, rather than like to make it a centralized list. But if it makes it so that it is public record, like, I'm fine for it to be visible to anyone. I'm not looking for it to be a hidden document if making it open and visible on the web makes it acceptable for us to collaborate on a document. I guess that's what I was suggesting.
Because that could be seen as, yeah, that could make a difference.
Yeah, and I think, Robin, that's a great idea. Tom Mullen may be able to just have a conversation with you too, or put it in writing if you explain the situation. I honestly, I don't know. I wouldn't even try to guess.
Cool.
All right.
Sean, anything else?
No, I mean, those were the main things we discussed. I think it's great to see the likes coming in on the stuff coming on Facebook. And I think if people repost those when they feel comfortable doing so, and everything. That'll just help get more likes both to the ESC group, which I see it's gone up, but also I think, you know, the real power is when we get these things, when things are reposted to the community groups, and that's just orders of magnitude more people. Yeah, I have questions about open meeting law stuff too, that I don't want to derail the subcommittee things, but I mean, I feel like Tiana gave one example. I'm feeling it on the land use stuff. I know, just as we create these subgroups, yeah, I know we're all getting better at it as we do it. I just feel like, given that we're volunteers with limited hours in the month, a lot of the time that I'd like to be doing things that I feel would be making progress, I'm writing up minutes of a meeting of 3 people and stuff like that. And I'm just wondering to what extent we can still meet both the letter and spirit of the open meetings law, but anything we can do to streamline it, because I think by having these many active subcommittees, we're also creating extra paperwork for ourselves. And so just, I don't know if there's ways of making it more streamlined.
I guess one thing I would say, and I mean, I think we all love really good minutes, but minutes do not have, you know, they can be bullets. It's okay to be bullets, you know, like, don't get too caught up on it. Especially now that things are recorded. I mean, obviously be factual, but it doesn't have to be paragraphs. It doesn't have to be every word. It doesn't have to be this person said this person. It can be like, we talked about land use, and these are the 5 topics that we talked about, and maybe next steps or something. So that would be my advice.
I felt minute shamed because Tiana had really nice minutes from our last subcommittee meeting, and then I felt like I had to up my game on minutes. So, but I guess and again, there's not a community education point, it's a more general subcommittee point. I wondered, to what extent can some of the reporting that has to happen around a committee happen in the context of reporting back to the larger committee versus reporting on, you know, each conversation? And that's where I'm wondering if there's any room for streamlining some of what we're doing, because we are reporting back here to each other. And if that makes it into the minutes, can that replace separate minutes, or can that at least lower the bar for what goes in separate minutes? I mean,
That would be nice, but I don't think so.
I think it can lower the bar. I don't think it can replace the minutes.
all right, that's.
Though if somebody's asking a question of Tom Mullen, ask him that. I'm forever surprised at the idiosyncrasies of the law.
Does it make sense to invite Tom Mullen to one of our meetings so we can ask him all of our questions, or does he not do that?
Oh, he would do it. He loves doing it. I think, didn't he come to one of our early meetings, Myra?
It was like the
He
second
did,
meeting.
yeah, like early on.
And he is a fabulous speaker. So, you know, if people are really curious, he would be a great speaker for us to ask.
He has a song that he sang or something.
Yes, he has a
like
song
Wizard of
that he does about open meeting law. Yes, he's fabulous.
Wow.
Yes, please, let's do that. Songbird
Wow.
meeting. I'm here for that.
Yeah,
Is
so
there
maybe
a
Rosa,
video
I'm
of
sure
the
he'd be willing
song?
to do it.
Can we
It
find a
sounds
He's
video?
also
great.
building a greenhouse.
It sounds great, and if it can help us, but I'm worried that then we'll invite him, we'll get the song, and then we'll find out that there's even more we should be doing.
But now I feel like we have a good sense, like we're into a routine, like I think we
Yeah.
know what we need to ask him now.
Yeah.
I don't think
And
we
the
knew
other-
when we saw him the first time.
The other part of this, and I know we all had, or many of us had some frustrations, is just that what is that timeline for when we can do some of these things in person? Because kind of the punchline that came down to me when I tried to schedule a subcommittee meeting was, we can't do it, right? Like, unless we get in the TV studio, we can't do it.
I don't know the direct answer to that. December sticks in my mind, but there is an entirely new handbook for committees that's being written that's almost ready to go out to everybody. In fact, there was some talk of maybe circulating it or talking to people at Wakefield 101, which I won't be at next week because I'm out of town, but I hope there'll be answers in there for everybody. They're going to give it to everybody at the same time.
Yeah, last time I asked Sherry, she said that they're working on adding Zoom equipment to more of the conference rooms at like town hall and maybe elsewhere. So because you need
The
apparently-
public safety building will be connected, and I understand that's gonna open like the lobby there is gonna open pretty soon, like in the next couple weeks. So I think we're gonna get some options.
Sean, just
what-
quickly scanning through the frequently asked questions on open meeting law in Massachusetts. The only thing I can find that says it's a requirement for a meeting minute is you have to list all members of the committee, whether they attended or not. That is the only thing I'm seeing as a minimum of your minutes.
So
So.
maybe our minutes can collapse to, we were all here and we talked stuff.
Well, and I think if we vote on anything, but
Well,
yeah,
sure,
committees,
recording
most
a
of what we
vote,
vote on is to approve the last set of minutes. So.
Minutes, yeah.
So were the before COVID meetings, I don't remember they were ever recorded when we met in person.
No,
So-
it was just minutes.
no,
So
we weren't required to, there was only minutes.
So
the
the requirement
video is,
happened
what's
during
that?
COVID? The-
What's that?
The recording requirement only happened because of COVID?
Yeah, so the state law didn't actually allow for remote meetings. We had to be in the same space. And then the governor signed an executive order
Oh, yeah.
that allowed
right.
the existence of remote and hybrid meetings. And then once the quarantining was lifted, people are like, wait a minute, we love this. And so they, the laws weren't prepared to this, and things are catching up. And there was a request to have it. So they keep kicking the can of when hybrid will expire or remote will expire. And there's folks that want to make it required, but others are advocating for the continuance because of public participation, that's expanded, or availability of these videos. So, so some communities are like, wait a minute, this is a cost that we're not prepared to continue. So there's that.
Yeah, it's being considered an unfunded mandate from the
Yes.
state at this point, right? So they're saying if state's gonna require us to continue to record hybrid meetings, then they need to fund it. So that's why it keeps getting kicked.
And that's my fear, that the discussion of the benefits needs to come with the discussion of the costs, not just the financial costs. But I think within this committee, there's a nice example of the cost to process, which if we're all spending collectively, even if we all get super good at it and get it down to the point where like, okay, it's just an extra 6 to 8 hours a month that we're collectively spending. But that's 6 to 8 hours a month we didn't spend doing the things we actually want to do on the committee, right? And it's tougher with subcommittees because we don't have, you're trying to chair and take notes at the same time. It's 2 people or 3 people or 4 people in a big subcommittee, right? Like, it's just, I personally feel that burden. I know it'll get better as I get used to it. But also, if really votes and attendees is the bare minimum, and if we're recording those subcommittee meetings anyway, then maybe at least my own guilt is less if the notes just say, see the recording for more details, because there we have gory detail. So.
Yeah. All right, moving on to ESC member groups. We don't have a student member yet, but we will soon. School committee, welcome Eileen. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, everyone.
So we usually go through all the liaisons for the different groups around town and kind of have them give updates of anything that's going on that we may need to be aware of or can help with or anything like that.
And I guess that a feed your topic is our constant curiosity on the use of kitchen waste, and it's getting away from the styrofoam trays and so forth. So that was a funding concern and others.
So I think in the next school committee meeting, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure on October 25th, our next one, we're going to have the new food coordinator for the schools. His name's Dustin, and I don't remember his last name, but he's going to be coming in on October 25th. So hopefully we can ask him some questions about that.
And the quick summary is that we want them to compost and not use styrofoam.
Yes, I know, Stephen Ingalls has mentioned it before, and I don't know, I know it was talked about and with the previous, woman that was kind of running things, but I don't know with this new, what's happening now, everything has changed a little bit, so I'm not sure where we're at. So it'll be good to have him come in and chat about that.
Yeah, so I've been working with the schools on a bunch of waste reduction initiatives, like recycling at the Galvin, and hopefully going to be getting funding to start back up the composting at the elementary schools.
Mhm.
So, and that'll be funded through the WEF grants. So yeah, we've kind of done a lot of waste reduction stuff in the schools, and we're actually, one of the things that maybe you can help get the word out is we're going to be doing a pumpkin composting event through Black Earth, which we've done in the past. So the collections will be done at each school.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing it on November 9th, which is a half day. So if you could help get the word out for people to bring in their pumpkins, and they'll be getting composted. And I don't know if there was I think that in the past there was some sort of competition maybe amongst the schools of who collected the most pumpkins.
It was like an informal competition, and we never got organized enough to weigh them.
Except Myra, you seem pretty competitive about it.
Well, that's because the Woodville always historically has not excelled in this particular area, although we have excelled in many other areas. No, I think there was always a little bit of competition, and we just took some pictures about sort of the size of the piles, and it's pretty impressive. We fill up an entire Black Earth truck full of pumpkins collected just after Halloween. So it's been cool, and I am happy to help, having Rob always organized it, but I have done a good amount of time, and my kids have too, pitching pumpkins into the back of trucks, and it's pretty fun actually.
Yeah. I know my kids usually love to throw them from our like second floor and smash them onto the. So that's okay if they come pre-smashed.
Absolutely.
The only
All the better. We always bring a shovel just for those really slimy ones at the end.
So it just can't be painted or anything that would be
Yeah.
contaminate.
Yeah. I know that some people, I was chatting with some people, and they use whatever it is to get the squirrels to not like lick it. So like anything like that. So that'll definitely have to be communicated to people. Unless it's just hot pepper spray or something, which is used to deter. I'm sure it's hard chemicals from the people that I've talked to. I'm sure it's not a natural thing.
Although I just learned something new last night that blew my mind is where you cut the pumpkin, apply coconut oil, and it won't shrivel.
Oh.
And I was like, how did I not know this?
Okay. All right, cool. So I have that November 9th, pumpkin composting. And where do they just drop it off at their schools, individual schools?
Isn't it just the elementary schools?
It's usually just the elementary schools, and sometimes the first year we did Canterbury too. And we haven't done the Doyle yet. We just put a tarp out in the morning, early in the morning, and they just pile it there. And then we just drive around with the Black Earth truck and keep them into the back.
Cool. Awesome. I will definitely mention that at the next school committee meeting.
Great, thanks. And if there's anything else you want us to know about that the school committee is working on?
Not really. I don't know if everyone saw the presentation from Left Field the other night. It was two different presentations. Like one was a very, I guess, long-winded one from last Thursday, and then one was the other night presented to the school committee. Really, no, I don't think anything has changed. You know, if we're talking about, you know, being environmentally conscious and everything, they kind of have a lot of that going on in their plans. It's just the pricing went up by like a ridiculous amount. So it's kind of shocking. So it went up a little bit. But we're going to be having the Senator Lewis come also on October 25th. And we wanted to talk to him about the like reimbursement and all of that. So nothing really else to report. It's just been busy. I think I've had a meeting every night this week. So.
Oh, boy. Joining us. Okay, thank you. Nobody from DPW's here. Julie?
I'll kind of do DPW too, because they were, like I said, they were in front of us last night. But just following up on the school thing, and Eileen, you may not even know this. So safe routes to school, which is kind of the biking pedestrian around safety around schools, which I know we don't really deal with that, though from a greenhouse gas standpoint, you know, that might be something that we look at in the inventory. Anyway, the point being that the high schools are now involved. It's a state program, and there's money to kind of improve sidewalks and improve crosswalks. And up until this year, high schools were not part of that, but they are now. And so the Safe Streets Working Group, which is a grassroots group, approached the principal, and she did sign on last week. So now every school in Wakefield is a Safe Routes to School. I think the Doyle is. I don't know about the Doyle actually, but pretty much every school is a Safe Routes to School designated. And so they can take part in, you know, the walk to school days and a lot of things like that. But there's also grant opportunities. So it's a little tangential to this, but I just thought I would mention it. In terms of DPW, I was just looking at their presentation. So we talked earlier, Black Earth was, according to their numbers, is 406. I think we just looked on the website and it's a little higher. They've provided 279 kits via grant, and there's still 21 available. They've diverted 201 tons, and I think this is over the life of the program, and saved about $20,000. The other big success is the, and I think we can take some credit for this because I think we promoted it, Tiana, the cardboard recycling at the Nahant Street pit. I think there's a better transfer station. I don't know. There's a better name for it, but we all call it the pit. And so really it was kind of just put there. It was a request that a lot of us made when we were renegotiating our recycling. It's a convenience for drop off, for residents to drop off. You don't have to get recycling or trash services from the town. So if you live in a condo, you can bring your cardboard there. You don't have to have a pit pass, so you don't have to pay for a pit pass. They have taken 14.2 tons to date. And we basically get paid for it at $40 a ton, more or less. And so, you know, it's about $600 the town has made from that. What they're really impressed with and really wanted to kind of thank residents for was that there's been zero contamination in that cardboard recycling. So nobody's thrown in anything crazy to contaminate a whole bin. So that's really, really great. A really great service. And then I think we saw today the notice went out on textiles and mattresses. So everybody can look up that. We reached out to 6 different vendors. 2 provided proposals, and we went with a vendor. I can't find the name here, but it's a private vendor. And there will be a fee though to pick up mattresses and box springs. And right now our fee is $20. So basically it's included in our white, what do they ever call it? White goods. Right. Yeah. So now it's $20, but mattresses and box springs are going to be $60 as of November 1st. So if anybody needs to get rid of a box spring or a mattress between now and November 1st, it'll save a little money. We know that can even be cost prohibitive, and it's per box spring and per mattress. So it can be cost prohibitive. So we're gonna look at different programs to maybe help support people who may not have the funds to do that, because the last thing we want is dumping. But the funds are because they actually physically have to recycle those. So they have to take, it's not just going into a landfill, they have to take it apart and all of that. For textiles, there's 13 drop-off locations around town. At all those schools, including the Doyle, there are drop-offs and other places. And we still have the pink bag program. It's not a pink bag anymore, and you can't put it out with your trash, but you can go online and call or yeah, you can do that.
Julie, with the
Yes.
cardboard recycling, I've shared it to a lot of people, and only complaint I've heard is that it's seasonal. And
because if the pit's not open, you can't get
exactly. And
Okay, that's a good point.
between November and January, the number of boxes circulated because of holidays just exponentially
Sure.
increases. So are there opportunities for alternate location for the collection, or just open date? Like, I think would make a huge difference.
Yeah, I will definitely ask, maybe we put it in a different location that's more accessible. Or
I know they like that it's
At a
secured.
meeting
Yeah.
that was brought up, and Anne had said that they were going to look at it because that was obviously they were sensitive to that last year.
Good point.
So I don't know that DPW has been back on since that, so maybe they have solved that, but yeah, definitely somewhere in town, where
Yep.
I don't know where, but that would be
Right.
accessible, would be great.
Okay, I will remind her of that. That's a really good point. I think other than that, next week is a busy week. I'm actually out of town, so I won't see anybody up. But so we have the 18th, I think, is the school meeting, right? Robin and Eileen. I think the 19th is master plan meeting, and it's going to be around sustainability and kind of mobility issues. I'm super bummed to miss it. It's only going to be in person.
But there is going to be a survey, right? Released right
Yes.
after it, and open for 2 or 3 weeks or so.
Yes.
The
So-
forum on the 18th is only in person at 7?
No, the forum on the 18th is virtual.
Right.
Master plan on the 19th is in person.
Oh,
and
got it.
then Wakefield 101, right,
Yeah.
is in person
Yes.
on the 21st. So it's a
Okay,
busy-
sorry. I thought you were saying the 18th was.
No, sorry, no, I don't want to
Yeah.
confuse anybody. The 19th, the 19th for the master plan is in person. So, but for people who can't attend, there will be a survey, and those surveys are really comprehensive. They kind of go through the same slides and then ask your opinion on things. That's it. I'm gonna stop talking.
Thank you. So Tom, I put in here to discuss the stretch code versus bylaw, but I'm not sure we have enough time to really get into it, but I wanted to just put it there as a reminder.
I can go through it real quick. Do you want to just give me screen share? And then while you're doing that, from update perspective, really from gas and light, things on the radar is we are working on an electric vehicle rate as well, for folks to opt in. It will be a option on top of the connected homes. So what we do now is, if you get a charger from us for the first 3 years, the charger is free, and then after that, the connected homes, if you participate in the peak, and this is around the peak shaving, is a $10 bill credit. You could also do the other option is the EV rate. So that program is being developed and potentially rolled out, towards the first of the year. All right. Let me bring up the PDF. Why is this not? Sorry. So it must be, all right. can we see the PDF
Yeah.
here? All right. I'm guessing that's in the wrong view.
Yeah.
All right. So essentially, we had started drafting, for those that may not have been on the committee before, we had started drafting 2 different codes to put in as bylaw, for one being PV or solar ready or compliant or installed, and EVSE, which is EV charging as well. We kind of put a pause on our own bylaw when we had kind of started socializing this with Tom Mullins, so legal counsel. We were running into some issues on, how do we trigger these within town? And then at that same time, the state kind of announced the new revamp of the stretch code. And then, as part of that, they are putting in on top of the stretch code, a new code called the specialized opt-in code. The specialized opt-in code very quickly is, a pathway for towns and municipalities to, achieve the goals of the net zero 2050. So it kind of gives those options. The specialized opt-in code will be something that needs to be voted on at town meeting when it becomes available. The new stretch code, so they're updating all 3, the base electrical code or base building codes, the stretch code, which we've adopted the stretch code. So all of the base code and the stretch code, those things, when they are ratified under the new one, will automatically get those new changes when those get ratified. And the trigger is once those are ratified, any new building permits issued after the ratification will be subjected to the new codes. Within those codes, there are some ramp up periods for the, basically through 2023 into, January 1st, 2024. Any questions on the kind of baseline before going over the kind of 2 different compare and contrasts of our codes? No. So we had drafted from a PV standpoint, really high level. It was the threshold was 10,000 square feet or 10 units or more. We were saying that minimum 50% of the suitable roof space be installed with solar panels. Anything under 10,000 square feet would be PV ready. And what PV ready is basically wire ready, conduit installed, and the panel being capable of supporting solar. So it's this panel being sized appropriately. From a EV perspective, we were saying 25% of all parking spaces in new developments be installed using a points requirement equivalence chart. So we, based on the development, you'd have to achieve, have to get a point system. So, for our development, say maybe this development had a point requirement of 50. Based on that 50, you had to install, this many level 1s, which is just basically a plug, a level 2, or a DC fast charger, or a EV car share, electric bike. So it gave the developer a little bit of flexibility in terms of what they wanted to put in to achieve their point goal. And then the remainder of that 75% space be level 2 or better ready, which is wire ready. There were no renovation triggers in our code. This was all for new construction. For the Department of Revenue, the stretch code and optimized code, basically here, what I've laid out is the assumption that we would adopt the specialized opt-in code. And within that code, there are pathways that a developer can take. So you could go an all electric home pathway or a fossil fuel path. If you take the fossil fuel path, solar panels need to be installed on any unshaded roof with good solar access no less than 75% of that potential zone space. The house or commercial space had to be pre-wired for future electrification. So that's your cooking, heating, cooling, anything that would be using fossil fuel needs to be pre-wired for electrification. And then wire ready for 20% of your parking spaces with a minimum of one space. If we don't opt the specialized code, the stretch code says 10% at a minimum of one space. If a developer chooses the all-electric pathway, they just need to be simply PV wire ready and EVSE ready for 20% of the parking spaces. Within the new kind of what they revamped in July of 2022, based on from what I had proposed, what was added in was residential homes that were greater than 4,000 square feet are not allowed to use the fossil fuel path. They have to go all electric or net zero. And within the base code, stretch code, and the optimized code, there are actually renovation threshold triggers in there. So if you're renovating so many square feet based on the existing square feet, you might be forced into one of the pathways and current code. So which would trigger potentially having to do PV, EV ready on those as well. So high level updates on that. Any questions, comments? So my recommendation would be, once the ratification happens at the state level, potentially for the spring town meeting, that we bring forth a warrant to opt into the special, to pass a specialized opt-in code for town. And then, if there's anything that we want to go above and beyond, that maybe we, look at that for future. One of the things that I really liked about, kind of our proposal, which was modeled after the Boston, was the point system for the EV parking. Gives some additional flexibility for developers, and especially things for car shares, e-bikes, and those things, which are not necessarily in the Department of Energy code space, but certainly something we could do at a town level, or even putting on, a ZBA wish list as well, to get these things thought about, right, and potentially put in.
So you don't think it's worth doing our own thing first?
No, I mean, I think being the green communities and having the stretch code achieves a lot more than what we already have, and then the optimized code pushes that even further. I think being uniform to start with everyone else as well makes things slightly easier. And then if there are things to tweak, maybe we add those on, build upon the, essentially the specialized opt-in code. Things that I think that are better in the Department of Energy is that there are thresholds for renovations, which, as I've learned, are kind of difficult to do and get past from a bylaw perspective, versus when it's, in the building code. So when it's in the building codes, there's a lot more teeth in there, and, that is enforced by the building department and the various inspectors in town.
Okay, so you think the building code has more weight than having a town bylaw?
At least as a baseline, absolutely, because the developers have to build to those codes, because they're built into the base electrical code. The stretch code is a part of that building code as well. And then the opt-in specialized code is part of that code base as well. And then from, I think we build off of those if we, where we feel we want to push for things more tailored for Wakefield.
Okay.
Tom, I agree. I think going to town meeting and explaining, hey, we just did the stretch code a year or so ago, and hey, we need you to do it again is enough going to be, needing to teach and educate folks to then also add on top of stuff. And, Wakefield has some great residents that will read every word and comment and stuff like that. And that will take time. And I wouldn't want the opt-in to get slowed down or confused by anything local.
Correct. Yeah. And I think the opt-in is easy to educate, because it is at the state level. There will be resources there as well. And it's, I have a feeling you're going to see quite a few communities, in the spring or even next fall, fall of 23, having warrant articles for the opt-in, specialized opt-in code, which, for us, I think it achieves most of the things that we were trying to do with our own bylaws. And, we won't be one-offs, all the communities that have already adopted the stretch code, and then all the communities that adopt the specialized opt-in code, it's all the same across the state. So it'll be, developers will be very familiar with that, because we won't be an island in that aspect.
So do we need to have 2 votes or just 1?
We would just need 1 because we've already adopted this, the way the stretch code works. Since we've already adopted the stretch code, when the stretch code gets updated, those updates are automatic. So the base code, they're changing the base code, which everyone in the state has to build to. Those are automatic. The stretch code, because we've already adopted the stretch code, those are automatic. So any changes that happen in there will automatically be enforced when it is ratified, which is expected to be ratified for January 1st. The part that we would need to have a warrant for is the specialized opt-in code, which is the Department of Energy's pathway for municipalities to meet the state's goals of, net zero for 2050.
This is great. Thank you, Tom, for doing the comparison. I 100% agree with your approach.
Yes, thank you. So then ESC can basically put together something for May town meeting on the specialized opt-in code.
Yeah, I guarantee you we'll get communication from the state once, those, from the Department of Energy, once those are ratified. I'm sure they're going to have a packet, and they're going to have a pre-written warrant article, like, here's what you need to do. I think we as ESC recommend this up to, town council to sponsor, the town council sponsor it, or, I don't know which one has more weight, whether it's ESC or town council, how that works, but it definitely should be either this body or town council sponsoring the warrant article.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Anything else from utility?
No, that was it. Unless
Okay,
there's
great.
questions.
So next meeting is November 10th. Does that work for people? Yes. Okay.
I will not be here, but don't necessarily need me.
Okay. Anything else anticipated? All right, motion to adjourn.
Second. Motion, whatever you need.
All right,
Who-
Tiana.
Second then, yeah.
Tiana.
Yes.
Robin.
Tara's typing, yes.
Chris,
Aye.
Julie,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Eileen,
Yes.
Myra.
Yes. night.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks. Good night.
Bye.